Hey guys, how you doing? Say, I just wanted to talk to you about my last tournament. Was on Douglas Lake in Dandridge, Tennessee. It was the third stop of the Bassmaster Southern Opens. I fished the whole tour, had a lot of fun. The first two events didn't go as much as I would have liked, but I kind of got some redemption on the last event. Ended up finishing 19th out of 150 boats and cut a pretty decent check, so I'm pretty happy about it. And I just kind of like to break it down and give you guys an idea of exactly what I was doing and what I found down there in Tennessee. Basically, I practiced for 5 days, and practice was real up and down for me. I could catch fish anywhere from 1 foot all the way down to 50 feet of water. I did catch a bass out of, and no real dialed in pattern that I was in love with. I knew the tournament was most likely going to be one deep, and I spent a lot of time out there. I found one good community hole spot that I thought the tournament might be able to be one off, but it just wasn't something that I could consistently count on. I did end up finding some fish in the shallow trees and willows and whatnot, and I kind of dialed in an exact pattern within the pattern and decided to run that on day one. Day one of the tournament, blast off, I was bowed 102. I'm going down the shoreline and I see my number one pick of a community hole wide open. So I decided to obviously stop and throw at it, because what does any tournament angler do when your favorite community hole is open? You stop and throw. On my fifth drop, I was actually throwing this, I call it the car hood, but it's a Ben Parker Magnum spoon. This is, I believe it's an 8-inch. The thing kind of looks like a car hood. Basically, you throw this down there and you rip it off the bottom, and I was able to trigger one reaction strike. I caught like a 4 1/4 on like my fifth or sixth cast. It was just, it kind of blew me away, to be honest with you. And I put that in there, fished for another 25 minutes, and nothing really came out of that other than that good kicker bite, which really kind of set my day up. I ended up leaving that spot and went to the shallows where I was comfortable with and knew I could get some bites. I ended up filling out a pretty quick limit, and I dialed in some spots even better and more of a pattern. I was able to build on it that tournament day. I ended up weighing 13 pounds, 3 ounces, which had me in, I think, about 35th, 36th place after day one. Day two came around, and I expanded on that pattern. I ran some brand new water that I had found just looking on Google Earth. Legitimately driving down the lake with Google Earth open and looking at the bank and just kind of placing things together. Ended up pulling in and catching some really good fish. I had a 412 on the last day and ended up weighing 1610, which was a pretty strong finish, I felt, for never being down to that lake, which is, you know, a big community hole lake. A lot of people know about the same spots. So anyways, I'm happy with that finish, but, you know, basically there was a lot of people running the same exact stuff that I was running, and what I think was what enabled me to get the better bites during this tournament was a couple things. For one, I'm throwing, you know, in a lot of wood, and basically when you're throwing wood with a bunch of other people, you have to make yourself different. I mean, what's going to be different about your approach versus everybody else's? I mean, everybody's flipping and doing what they're going to do, and I had to differ myself. And basically what I did was I was using a 13 fishing. This is a NV black rod. I'm just in love with this rod. This is a 7.3 medium heavy. This is a newer reel to the market. It's a 13 fishing Inception. This reel, it goes for about $125 or $129 on the market today. This reel is awesome. There is no better reel on the market right now for $120 some. I mean, this thing is smooth. I mean, it's an awesome reel. And basically what I was doing was throwing up underneath the willow trees. I also weighed a couple fish off docks, but my main key is, you know, within that pattern was I was going to try to put my bait where nobody else's bait's going. I want to get it further up in there and hit the little nooks and crannies that nobody else was picking apart. And this rod that I was showing you, this NV Black, basically the way that this rod is designed is quite a bit different from a lot of other ones. If you can kind of look at the blank, you can see how this rod loads. It actually has a really fast tip, and it has a lot of backbone. Now what that enables me to do for, you know, people that love to fish docks and skip under trees like I do, that fast tip is everything. What that's going to do is it creates like a slingshot motion for this, you know, I'm throwing a jig, a slingshot to get it up underneath that dock. If you have a stouter rod, you're not going to be able to get that really accurate cast. you're actually going to foul up. This one will slingshot that jig underneath there, and it also cuts way down on backlashes. If you're skipping docks and you notice you get a whole bunch of backlashes, try using a rod that has a faster tip like this. And then the backbone comes into play that, I'm fishing in wood. If I have a 4.5 pounder load up on my rod, when I drop the hammer on them, I need to be able to pull that fish out of there and get a good hook set penetration in that fish. On the business end, this is one of my favorite things, and I'm excited to talk to you guys about this. This right here is an Outkast tackle juice jig. It's a newer jig for Outkast. This is Andrew Upshaw's design, and basically, you're looking at this jig and wondering, well, why is this jig better than the other 10 million jigs on the market? And I'm going to show you why. You can see that this one's beat up. I've put this thing through the ringer. I mean, this is the actual jig that I caught fish on down there. And basically, there's some special things to this jig. If you look at the head, for one, you can see that it's flat on the back, and it actually has a couple flat sides right here. What that does is when you cast that jig and you're skipping that jig in, I mean, that flat back on there is just like when you're a kid and you're going to skip a rock in the water. It's the same effect. This jig will skip 10 times better than any jig on the market. Also, their colors are awesome. This color that I was using is the Upshaw Craw. And basically I was tipping it with a Strike King Rage Craw in Falcon Lake Craw color. The other thing is, I'm real particular about the weed guard on my jig. This one's perfect. I mean, you can look right in on this jig and see that I never cut a single one of those bristles off that jig. That's straight out of the pack like that. All I did was trim the ends up a little bit, and I spread it apart. I like to spread the weed guard apart just a little bit. But I mean, right out of the pack, this jig is awesome. It has a super good heavy wire hook. You're not going to move that. You're going to be able to pin any fish with that and reel it right into the boat. I mean, even if you're flipping on braid, it'll work too. I'm super pumped about this jig. I can't, this is the first season that I've actually used the juice jig, and I can't wait to throw this thing all summer long. Last but not least, the thing that I was doing that, may have enabled me to get a couple more bites down there is I was throwing, this is JB's fish sauce, and basically what I was doing, I was actually using it, I have it in all three forms, as you can see. They make it in this, they make it in more of a looser kind, and then this is, like a deodorant stick type, which I personally prefer. I got a whole bunch of these, and basically you just open this up a little bit, and I was smearing it on the back of the trailer right here and kind of on the weed guard too. I'll take any kind of advantage that I can get over my competition when I'm throwing, and I really do believe this stuff works. I was throwing the bait fish color, bait fish flavor when I was down there, and everything worked perfect for me. The gear performed awesome, and I'm just happy with the finish that I had. So thanks for tuning into the video, and tight lines.